Hi, and welcome to the TMDSAS application workshop for entry year 2021. I'm Nicole Castillo, the Senior Applicant Liaison and Resource Manager for TMDSAS.
And I'm Enrique Hossa Jr., the Associate Director and Podcast Host of the Texas Health Education Service. We're excited to walk you through the application process this year and give you some pointers that can help you stand out in your application. So let's get started. The Texas Medical and Dental Schools Application Service is actually comprised of three areas: TMDSAS, the Joint Admission Medical Program, a special program that helps economically disadvantaged students find a pathway to medical school, and the Texas Health Education Service, which amplifies the message for TMDSAS and JAMP, and also provides resources for advisors and applicants. Together, these three entities collaborate and bring the platform that TMDSAS has developed over the past 50 years to ensure that all of our professional schools and undergraduate institutions are able to work as one for the benefit of our applicants. This presentation is jam-packed with resources, so make sure you have a pen and pencil or something to take notes with. And as we usually do, we'll make sure to timestamp important areas so you can come back and refer to them as you're filling out the application. The Texas Health Education Service amplifies the message for TMDSAS and JAMP to serve students, collegiate advisors, and professional schools by providing educational resources that enhance the preparation for a career in health professions, and by supporting efforts by the professional schools and advisors to reach students and enrich the applicant pool. At TMDSAS, the mission is twofold. One, for the member institutions, is a platform for collaboration among all member institutions. And they also provide data analysis and research on application trends, policy and procedural guidance, outreach, and advising assistance. And for applicants and advisors, TMDSAS is a cost-effective standardized application for all public medical, dental, and veterinary schools in Texas. They also provide advising assistance on Texas residency, education requirements for professional school, admissions trends, personalized application guidance, and support throughout the application process. The member institutions for TMDSAS are listed here. Over the next application cycle, we anticipate that the Woody L. Hunt School of Dental Medicine will join TMDSAS, as well as the Texas Tech University School of Veterinary Medicine.
So yeah, that's a great introduction to who we are at TMDSAS, as well as JAMP and Texas Health Education Service. Here's an overview of the application process in total and kind of what each person does in the process. So applicants are responsible for completing and submitting the online application. They're responsible for paying the application fee and submitting a photo, sending us test scores on letters of evaluation, and of course, for completing any secondary applications. On our end, what TMDSAS does is we process applications, we collect supporting documents, we verify the information in the application and in your supporting documents, and we transmit that to the schools. During peak season, that process can take anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks. And finally, the schools receive application information from TMDSAS. They screen and review applicants. They invite for and conduct interviews, and ultimately they make the admissions decisions. So an important distinction here is to know that TMDSAS is not involved in the admissions process. Those decisions are made by the schools.
Let's take a look at some admissions data for this past entry year. Here we see the funnel of all of the applicants interviewed and those that were accepted for medical, dental, and veterinary schools. You'll note that as the application process continues, the funnel gets smaller and smaller until we reach our matriculated class. For full statistics on the demographic and what our entry year 2019 classes look like, please refer to the TMDSAS website and check out our applicant statistics. In this graph, we see the distribution of all GPAs for matriculated applicants. You'll notice that as we approach the 4.0, applicants are more and more highly representative, especially among those applicants that have a 3.75 GPA. For medical applicants, this is a 2/3 representation for all of our matriculated classes. For MCAT scores of our medical matriculated applicants, here we have the overall distribution. The mean MCAT score for EY 2019 was a 511. For dental applicants who took the DAT, here we have the academic average distribution. The average DAT score for the academic average was a 21. And here we have the perceptual ability of the DAT. The average there was just between a 20 and a 21. Some key takeaways for you to know is that you need to be educated on the numbers. Each one of our participating schools have different averages. So make sure that you consult those schools and MSTAR or any other applicant resources to identify what your target scores should be. Make sure that you take the time that you need to prepare for your exam, and make sure that you schedule your exam at a point where you are able to perform at the level that you'd like, but not at the expense of delaying your application timeline. And remember that these numbers are important, but they're not everything. The Texas schools all use holistic review, which means that they'll take a look at the entirety of your application and not just one factor.
All right, so let's get into talk about the application itself. So our objectives here are to help you develop a strategy before you apply, to help you learn how to complete your application thoroughly, and also to understand that the process doesn't end when you hit submit. Okay, so what should you do before you apply? Be sure to explore our resources, starting with the TMDSAS handbook. Also check out the Apply magazine and be sure to familiarize yourself with the TMDSAS website and the resources such as the Inside Health Education podcast that are found on the Texas Health Education Service website. So what can you prepare before you apply? Be sure to prepare your evaluators. As these are the individuals who will be writing your letters of recommendation, you want to be sure that you have good communication and a good relationship with them so that you can keep each other on track throughout the application cycle. Have your transcripts on hand for your reference. You'll need these as you work through the coursework section of the application. Also have on hand your CV or resume, as this will help you keep track of your employment, research, leadership, healthcare, and community service activities. And finally, be prepared for the cost. Know that apart from the application fee, there are lots of other fees that will come up in this process. So be sure that you are aware of what those are and that you're prepared to meet that. And finally, be sure to engage with your pre-health advisors as your primary resources at your institutions and your #1 cheerleaders. Your advisors provide a wealth of information and support throughout this process. And we also encourage you to engage with us. Follow TMDSAS on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So what are some things to keep in mind when you're ready to apply? Well, 1, be prepared. This means developing a personal timeline based on the application deadline. This includes taking into account when you want to submit your application, scheduling your entrance exams, as well as submitting your supporting documentation like letters of evaluation and test scores. Also, be thorough. Don't rush. We recommend that applicants spend at least 2 full weeks working on the application. And remember that there are few things that can be updated once the application is submitted. So to that end, we highly recommend that you download the PDF of your application and if possible, print it out so that you can review it thoroughly before you submit. Also, to aid you in completing the application thoroughly, use the handbook as you work through the application, since it's designed to go section by section with the application. Also, be professional. A good example of this is in the photo that you select for your application. Be sure to check out the article on our newest edition of Apply about the photo and how it's used in the application, as well as some tips on how to choose the best one. And also be professional in your interactions with TMDSAS and school staff. And finally, be responsive. This means that you're checking and responding to any messages from TMDSAS or the schools as they come in, and that you're updating your application as needed. This could be with things like a change of address, changes to your planned coursework, or things like that. So what else will you need? Well, in addition to a completed application, you will also be required to submit letters of evaluation and test scores. For medical applicants, 3 individual letters or 1 HPAC is required, and you'll have the option to submit 1 additional letter. For dental applicants, the requirement is 3 individual letters or 1 HPAC, with also the option to submit 1 additional letter, and 1 letter must be from a practicing dentist. Veterinary applicants must submit 3 recommendation forms. And when it comes to your test scores, for medical applicants, be sure to release your scores to TMDSAS. Make sure that your name, date of birth, AAMC ID, and test date matches. For the DAT, applicants will release the scores directly to one dental school, and they will in turn reach TMDSAS. And for veterinary applicants, you'll be releasing your GRE scores directly to the veterinary school. So the coursework section is a pretty dense portion of the application, and we thought it helpful to include some additional guidance when working through this section of the application. The first thing to keep in mind is that every institution must be accounted for. This includes dual credit coursework completed at a community college. Also, be sure to list every term separately. And enter all of your courses exactly as they appear on your official transcripts. If AP credit is granted on your transcript, be sure to include this. Only include AP credit if it is broken down into individual courses that have specific course information and hours. Omit any 0-hour courses. Be sure to refer to the TMDSAS application handbook while working through the coursework section. And use the course listings available on our website to help you code your courses. This refers to the course area, such as bio lecture or physics. So we want you to use the course listings to help you code your courses. But if you're unsure about a certain course, don't stress about it. Use your best judgment. Part of our process is to review the coursework, and we will make any adjustments as necessary. But the biggest thing to keep in mind when working through the coursework section of the application is that this will be a long process, so be sure to plan accordingly. One final note is that the application will time out after a certain amount of time, so be sure to save frequently to prevent the loss of any information. So a note about activities. Here are all of the categories of activities that you will see in the application. Now, all applicants will need to select the best category for each activity. The exception to this is for medical and dental applicants, only if an activity fits in both healthcare and employment. In that case, you may enter each activity in both sections, but all other activities must be listed in only one category. Okay, so what does it mean when it comes to application processing? Well, there's a difference. So what does TMDSAS need? Well, TMDSAS needs the fee to be paid, for spring grades to be entered if applicable, for residency documentation to be provided, and for there to be no unresolved app issues. Once these have been met, TMDSAS will process and transmit your application to the schools of your choice. Now, what do the schools need to process your application? Well, they need the transmitted application from TMDSAS, secondary applications, if applicable, letters of evaluation, and test scores. So the important distinction here is that TMDSAS will process your application without letters of evaluation and test scores. We will accept and process these documents as they come in later. The schools, on the other hand, will require that your letters and test scores be submitted prior to processing your application. So due to the 90-10 law here in Texas, residency is another major component of the application. Here's an overview of the residency determination process. An initial determination is made based on the responses applicants provide in the residency section of the application. It's important to note that this determination is not final. Once an application is submitted and processing begins, an applicant liaison will conduct a thorough review of residency. This means that they may request documents to verify Texas residency, and then a determination is made. If the result is that an applicant is determined to be a non-Texas resident, they then have the option to appeal. At this point, documentation or further documentation will need to be submitted to support a claim of residency. The Residency Appeals Committee will review each case and render a decision. And it is important to note that the decision of the Residency Appeals Committee is final. Okay, so here's a great question. What about changes to the application? So there are only minimal changes that will be made to the application after submission. Now, what are some things that an applicant can change after an application has been submitted? Well, applicants can update things like contact information and coursework. What can TMDSAS update? Well, there's a lot that TMDSAS can update. We can update things like high school graduation, place of birth, family contact information, etc. However, each instance will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis before any changes or updates are made. Now, what has to be updated? If there are any changes to disciplinary action or felonies and misdemeanors following submission of the application, these changes must be reported to TMDSAS. What about what can't be changed? No changes will be allowed to the activities, essays, or photo portion of the application. So just to reiterate, the importance of printing and reviewing your application before submission. This will allow you the opportunity to take your time and thoroughly review every section of the application prior to submission to be sure to catch any mistakes or omissions that you would otherwise not be able to correct. For a full list of what changes can be made and who can make them, refer to our website and the handbook for more information about changes to the application. Okay, so after you apply, how can you stay on track? Well, the first thing you'll need to do is to complete secondary applications. You'll want to do this immediately after submitting your TMDSAS application. Here are the list of the schools that require secondary applications. As you can see, some of these are by invitation only, which means that the others require you to take the initiative to submit that application. So in line with completing secondary applications, some schools require that you complete a CASPER assessment. For more information on which schools require CASPER, be sure to check out the TMDSAS website. You'll also want to monitor the status of your application processing and to be sure to review your PCR once your application has been transmitted. To give you a little context about this process, once your application has been transmitted, you will receive a message from your applicant liaison directing you to review the PCR. The PCR is a document that lists all of your prerequisite coursework. So you'll want to be sure to review this to catch any deficiencies and resolve them as soon as possible. You can also monitor the status of your letters of evaluation and test scores. This is something that is immediately available by logging into the application and checking the status page. And you can do this at any time and does not require a call to TMDSAS. And to help stay on track, be sure to update the application if there are any changes to things like contact information, planned coursework, test dates, or evaluators. All right, well, let me introduce you to the rest of the applicant liaison team. Desiree, Brianna, Audrey, or myself will become your new point of contact once you submit your application. As I mentioned, you will receive a message from your applicant liaison with important information regarding the status of your application and next steps. So be sure to be on the lookout for a message from us once you submit your application. So when it comes to interviews and admissions, first and foremost, be sure to show up to all in-person interviews. Make sure that you accept all invitations and that you are polite and courteous in your dealings with all school personnel. Secondly, make sure that you are keeping track of the admissions timelines for each type of school. This information is available on the TMDSAS website. Be sure to check out the timeline on our website as well as the page on deadlines and important dates.
Now let's go over some of the changes for entry year 2021 that are happening to the TMDSAS application. First off, the demographics section has an update for birth and sex questions that have been added. The options for sex have been expanded, as well as gender identity questions. Applicants also have the opportunity to submit their preferred pronouns and also list their own if they have others that are not identified here. A question in the felonies and misdemeanors section has been changed to ask whether you've been arrested or charged with any violation of the law, regardless of the outcome. Unless the offense involved alcohol or drugs, you may exclude traffic tickets or violations with fines of $250 or less. The process for transcripts has now also been updated. Previously, applicants would be able to send transcripts all the way through October 15th. However, now, applicants will only send in their transcripts once they are prompted to do so by TMDSAS. Once the application validation process begins, the applicants will receive an email from TMDSAS and a message through the application portal indicating that your transcripts are now required for the application. Transcripts will not be accepted until they are requested by TMDSAS. The research section of the application has also been expanded to allow for publications to be added to your research activities. In the research activity section, you'll have the question, did this research result in any publications, posters, or presentations? If you indicate yes, a text box will now appear that allows you 500 characters to provide details and citations of your publication or presentation, as well as a short description.
So here are the entry year 2021 application cycle dates. Be sure to keep this information handy, but also know that in response to COVID-19, some of these dates may change. So please be sure to refer to the TMDSAS website for the most up-to-date information.
You'll notice that the extension of the application cycle has also resulted in the match dates to be pushed back accordingly. If you have questions about the TMDSAS match, we encourage you to take a look at our video about the TMDSAS match process.
So when it comes to filling out the application, what do you really need to worry about? We've taken the liberty of reorganizing this information in a different way. So when it comes to completing the application, what will haunt you? Well, not printing and reviewing your application PDF prior to submitting will haunt you, as well as not checking the status of your test scores and letters, not responding in a timely manner to messages from TMDSAS, and not keeping track of deadlines. What might annoy you? Well, as we mentioned, it's important to be thorough when completing the coursework section of the application. not entering your coursework correctly might annoy you because you'll have to fix this, and this could result in application processing delays. Also, it might annoy you to not utilize resources while completing the application, as you might make mistakes that you would otherwise avoid. And also, not reviewing your PCR in a timely manner might annoy you because you won't be able to catch coursework deficiencies and resolve them quickly. And finally, what's not a big deal? Well, if you have changes to planned coursework, not a problem. If you aren't sure how to code a course, also not a problem. Don't sweat it, just use your best judgment, and TMDSAS will take care of the rest. And if you need to make any changes to an evaluator after you submit your application, also not a problem. Just reach out to us with that evaluator's information. So some key takeaways from this section. 1, plan your application and take your time. Just a reminder, we recommend 2 full weeks. Also, utilize your resources, including TMDSAS as a resource. So if you have any questions throughout the process, never hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to help. Also, remember that it doesn't end once you hit submit. There's more to be done to keep yourself on track throughout the process. Also, remember that most common mistakes are easily avoidable, and some might hurt you in the long run. So it's best to use your resources and take your time when completing the application, and to print and review it before you submit. But above all, remember that we're here to help. So stay connected with your applicant liaison throughout the process.
Before we end this presentation, we want to make sure that all of our applicants are aware of the core competencies that are expected of applicants at this point of the process. The AAMC has put together a list of core competencies that they have identified as being the most important for applicants at this point in their development toward becoming healthcare providers. You'll see here several of the interpersonal, intrapersonal, thinking and reasoning, and science competencies that the schools are looking for. As we explore interpersonal and intrapersonal skills, we notice that these are very common things that we expect out of our aspiring physicians. What you want to do is use these skills or core competencies and highlight them in your application. The AAMC has some amazing resources that show how an applicant is reviewed and checks all of the boxes for these core competencies. As you request letters from your evaluators, make sure that they're aware of these competencies because they're essentially the rubric against which your application is being processed. A link to all of these core competencies is available in the description of this video. Dentistry has also identified similar competencies, and you'll notice that there's a lot of overlap. And veterinary schools have also identified core competencies that they expect out of their applicants. So make sure you do your due diligence to identify what it is that the schools are looking for and how you can align your application to target the schools that you most want to go to. Remember that the schools will use holistic review in their admission process. Applicants are evaluated beyond just the metrics. Your application is looked at holistically, which means that they'll see everything that you've entered in your application and make admissions decisions based off of how well you would be able to fulfill their mission. Get to know the schools that you're applying to. Each of these schools has posted a mission and value statement on their website. Explore their websites and find out what these are. If you have any schools that you're particularly interested in attending, it might be in your best interest to mention some of these mission and value statements and reflect how you've exhibited them in your application. Highlight your competencies in the primary and secondary applications and during your interviews. The clearer you make the distinction between your experiences and the things that you bring to the table and the core competencies, the easier it is for the schools to make that connection. To echo what Nicole said about knowing your resources, here are some important resources for you to have. Again, download the EY21 application handbook from the TMDSAS website. We also invite you to join our online communities, the TMDSAS Non-Traditional Applicants Group, open to all non-traditional applicants, and also the TMDSAS Hub, which is open to all applicants at TMDSAS. Listen to Inside Health Education podcast, which has a wealth of information from advisors, admissions professionals and deans from the schools, and also from other professionals that can help you make your application the best it can be. Don't forget to download the Apply magazine, which is available on the TXHES and TMDSAS websites. EY 2021 is a little bit different due to impacts caused by COVID-19. For the latest updates, make sure that you stay up to date with our Newsroom page available on the TMDSAS, JAMP, and TXHES websites. At the time of the recording of this episode, you should know that the application deadline has been extended through October 30th. The TMDSAS member institutions have also agreed to accept any pass-fail or no credit courses, and those include the prerequisite courses that you may be taking in spring 2020. Online coursework will also be accepted, including prerequisite coursework. Delays with the MCAT and DAT should not stop you from submitting. As Nicole mentioned earlier, the TMDSAS application can be submitted even though you don't have your letters of evaluation or test scores available yet. So make sure that you don't allow those to keep you from submitting your TMDSAS application. We still encourage you to submit your application early to allow the schools the most amount of time to review your application.
Thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to learn about the application process with us today, and we want to invite you to connect with us immediately. You can do that by texting the word TMDSAS to 66866, and that will sign you up to receive updates from TMDSAS. It'll also invite you to complete a 1-minute survey about today's presentation, and as a thank you, you will receive a PDF with key takeaways from today. If you have questions, please email us at info@tmdsas.com.
On behalf of the Texas Health Education Service and TMDSAS, we'd like to wish all of our applicants all the best of luck this application cycle, and we look forward to working with you.